Cleveland in 1969 to go to school, Case Western Reserve, and I think I probably met Jane that same year. I had a dream of being a rock writer, which really wasn't a possible dream at that point, because rock writing was a boys' club as far as I could see. And I wrote for The Observer. I was also taking pictures because that seemed like a more possible outlet. And I met Jane Scott at Public Hall. I can't remember what show it was, but she was in the concourse along the side of Public Hall, talking with some fans and taking notes in her omnipresent notebook. And I was interested in who she was and what she was doing, and I took a picture of her that I have interviewing those girls. It was probably not too long after that that I actually met her one-on-one. She probably noticed my camera and my notebook and wanted to know what I was doing. And I very quickly became one of the large group of sort of informants that she had, fans that she would make a beeline for, to ask their impressions of the various shows. I did some writing for some underground magazines. I quickly realized that, Jane was probably, not probably, but she was unique. It was the only girl they were going to let in the club. And I moved on to doing photography. However, in 1974, partly luck and partly by my conniving, I managed to get hired by the Plain Dealer as a freelancer, sort of second in command to Jane, covering the things that she couldn't cover. Not that there was very much that she missed. But the Cleveland scene was exploding at the time. We had concerts all the time, and music in Public Hall, Beyond the Theater, every Monday night at the Agora. Blossom used to have 35, 36 pop shows every summer. The Front Row and Richfield Coliseum would open later that year. And so I covered the shows that Jane couldn't get to, although sometimes it really did seem to me like she was in two places at once, or sometimes three. It wasn't very long after that a lot of people started saying to me, "Oh, Jane, she's getting too old. When are you going to take over for her?" Well, it became very rapidly clear to me that there really wasn't anyone out there that could take over for Jane. Jane she had a special persistence and dedication to what she did that I couldn't have duplicated. I don't know anybody that I've encountered over the years that could duplicate that. Everything was on her radar. I mean, I like most people, I have very wide musical taste, but there are certain things that, just keep it away from me. The Plain Dealer one time actually paid me double to cover an Engelbert concert because the person who normally covered the more nightclubby things was out of town. I told him I even drove the line Harry Chapin, I really hated him. But with Jane, it could be Paul Anka, it could be the Bad Brains, it really didn't matter to her. She just covered everything. And she didn't have that kind of snobbishness or reverse snobbishness that sort of divided rock music writers. You had the lofty ones who were, into Sonic Youth or somebody, into underground bands. And they would write these, these lofty analyses of, some 70s Cleveland art rock bands like Pere Ubu and Rocket Blue Tunes. Jane discovered them. She was there. And on the other hand, you had the snobbishness where they said, the underground bands, the college bands, those are cool, but we won't pay any attention to more mainstream things. The mainstream things were very much on Jane's radar. In the 80s, you had a lot of people paying attention to, locally, to some of the, more arty bands. Probably the most happening scene in Cleveland in the 80s was the metal scene, particularly the bands that recorded for Cleveland-based Auburn Records. And Jane Scott was one of the first people to recognize, she was the first person, I was part of the scene, but Jane Scott was the first person to write about those bands and to follow that scene consistently. And some of those bands to this day are still doing coveted spots on major, major rock festivals over in Germany. And Jane was there first. Jane always had her finger on everything without judgment. In 1987, the Plain Dealer decided, in their infinite lack of wisdom, that they were going to move Jane to a beat more appropriate for someone of her age. And that was the point at which I bowed out. I just really was turned off and soured by that. Jane was not. Jane fought back with help from quite a few of her friends. Bill Peters from Auburn Records was one. Michael Stanley led a petition drive. I mean, these people that Jane had helped locally over the years rallied around her, got people to make phone calls, people to fill in petitions, people to write letters, and they reversed their decision. And Jane never had any bitterness about it. All she wanted to do was write about music, and she just went merrily on her way. She outlasted me by, well over a decade. She just kept on. And as a result, she left this incredible legacy where she wrote about everything, regardless of what it was, leaving a really, really valuable documentation that is sort of an archive of everything that happened in music in that period, and particularly that happened in Cleveland music. And if she had not done that, probably half of what we know about music that happened in this town would just be totally gone. And as a result of Jane and her really singular dedication to just covering everything night after night after night after night, sometimes 2 or 3 things a night, we have this document. So all of us owe just a huge, huge debt of gratitude to Jane.